Shotguns in Borderlands 3 can be very strong, but they can also be very bad. This video will help you figure out which one's which. Hey Volt Hunters, I'm Constant Canadian, and this is the definitive legendary shotgun tier list. If you enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe as it really helps out the channel. And if you're looking for more Borderlands content, consider joining me live on YouTube. I live stream every Saturday to Tuesday from 6 PM EST until whenever I feel like it. See you there. Starting off with the Blind Sage. The Blind Sage is a Maliwan shotgun and as such will always spawn with 2 of the 5 elements. This shotgun has pretty high damage, but low stats pretty much everywhere else. A very short range, and it requires a charge up time of 1 second before each shot. Upon shooting an enemy with the Blind Sage, they get the Echo debuff, and when an enemy with the Echo debuff is killed with the Blind Sage, 2 orbs shoot out of that enemy, dealing splash damage of the weapon's element. These orbs are just not very strong, and unlike the orbs from many other weapons, do not home in on targets. They just shoot straight in the general direction of another enemy, which makes the actual unique part of the Blind Sage kind of a joke. The damage on the Blind Sage is very good though, and I could imagine Moze could get some damage out of the secondary projectiles, providing they actually hit, so it's going in the B tier. The Brightside is a shotgun manufactured by Tidior that is available in all elements as well as non-elemental. The problem with this shotgun is its fairly low damage. Despite having a very large number of pellets, the Brightside only has about 5,000 damage per pellet. Compare that to the last shotgun on this list, which had 2 less pellets but about 4 times the damage. The special effect of this weapon is similar to the Babymaker pistol, only way worse. Upon reloading the Brightside, 4 clones of this weapon will spawn. 1 with cryo, 1 with fire, 1 with corrosive, and 1 with radiation. These drones will shoot at nearby enemies. But the problem is these clones only last about 3 seconds, and much like the Brightside are very middle of the road damage-wise. It's going in the C tier. The Convergence is a Hyperion shotgun available in every element as well as non-elemental, and while at first glance the gun doesn't really seem that strong, it is very powerful. It's got lower damage on the card than even the Brightside we just talked about. However, the Convergence's special effect does a lot for it. When shooting an enemy with the Convergence, multiple extra projectiles spawn and converge on the target where you shot them. This special effect is crazy good, since if you shoot a critical hit the first time, all of the extra projectiles will also hit critical hits for great damage. This flak build is a very basic Gamma Burst flak build, and it breezed through Conrad's hold with minimal effort. Certainly an A tier shotgun. The Critical Thug is a shotgun with lots of positives that has great potential, but that also has a lot of negatives that really hold it back. The Critical Thug is manufactured by Torque and is locked to being non-elemental. That's its first major negative. The Critical Thug shoots 1 or 2 shells at the enemy that deals splash damage on impact, then explodes again after about 3 seconds for more splash damage. While this does seem like an awesome shotgun and a great choice for Moze, the Critical Thug also has plus 360 splash damage radius, which makes the explosions kind of obnoxiously large. So the only person I can really recommend this weapon for is Zane, as everyone else has to stand so far back and make this already unforgiving shotgun even harder to aim. This weapon will also ricochet critical hits to every nearby enemy, which again sounds awesome, but that means if you stand anywhere near any enemy when you score a critical hit with this thing, it's kind of a death sentence. It also doesn't help that unlike most Torg shotguns, you can't stack multiple stickies on an enemy for extra damage. The Critical Thug was a great concept, but overall just isn't a good choice for anybody but Zane. And even still, there are much better options for Torg shotguns than that. It's going in the C tier. The Frequency is a shotgun manufactured by Maliwan that comes in all elements, and has pretty strong base damage across up to 24 pellets. When killing an enemy with the Frequency equipped, this weapon gains a stacking extra burst to its burst count. These burst count stacks last about 14 seconds and can, as far as I can tell, stack infinitely. However, this weapon will probably be better with an actual stack limit, as the problem posed by this shotgun is certainly the ammo consumption. Once you've gotten about 2 or 3 stacks built up, most of the time the enemy will be dead before you've even finished shooting, and at that point you're kind of just shooting at nothing. Ammo issues aside, the Frequency is quite strong, though the charge time is painful, so it's going in the B tier. Moving on now to the Feebert. The Feebert is a Hyperion shotgun available in all elements as well as non-elemental. This weapon has fairly low damage for a shotgun as well as only having a pellet count of 2. The main draw of the Feebert is that its bullets travel extremely quickly, but it is otherwise a very underwhelming shotgun, which sucks because I kinda like using it. It's going in the C tier. The One Pump Chump is a Jacobs shotgun that naturally is locked to non-elemental. This shotgun shoots one single pellet that deals a very high amount of damage. It also has a 50% chance to not consume ammo on any shot and ricochets crits at nearby enemies. Aside from its really high base damage, this shotgun is pretty bad, though it can still be useful if properly built for, so it's going in the B tier. Next up is the Reflux. The Reflux is a Hyperion shotgun that is permanently locked to corrosive. When shooting an enemy, the Reflux will chain enemies together, transferring the damage between them. This chain can also chain back to the initially damaged enemy. This weapon essentially puts the jankiness of Ties That Binds into the hands of players that aren't Amara. The Reflux is one of my personal favorite weapons to use for Amara, as it really makes the craziest elemental storms, though it could still be improved upon, so it's going in the A tier. The Brainstormer is essentially the Reflux's little brother. This weapon has the exact same effect as the Reflux, except the Brainstormer has less damage and is locked to shock damage rather than corrosive. The Brainstormer is still a good choice, but its damage is lower and could be achieved with an ASE 50% Shock Anoint and the Reflux. It's going in the B tier. Up next is the Boring Gun. The Boring Gun is similar to the Critical Thug in that it kills you a lot, but way worse. This weapon, available in all elements as well as non-elemental, shoots 3 or 6 depending on the parts, saw blades that travel across the ground in a V-shaped pattern. Think the shape of a chicken foot, basically. These saw blades explode upon impacting an enemy and bounce off of surfaces. These saw blades also have an insane splash radius and just love to bounce off of random geometry and bounce straight back into the player's face. While it is possible to negate the self-damage using duct tape mod on Zane, or a transformer or red suit shield, the inaccuracy of this weapon, as well as its pretty subpar damage, is just not worth building around it at all. It's going in the D tier. The Anarchy shotgun is manufactured by Tidior, and despite my built-in hatred for Tidior, even I can't deny how amazing this weapon is. The Anarchy, similar to the Borderlands 2 skill it's named after, gives you bonus weapon damage and decreased accuracy when the weapon is reloaded or upon killing an enemy. This weapon damage stacks on top of itself and can stack up to 10 times. At max stacks, the Anarchy gets around 13 times the damage it had originally. Combine that insanity with the fact that the Anarchy's bullets deal splash damage for whatever reason, and you have one of the best shotguns in the entire game. It's going in the S tier. The Hellwalker is a shotgun that really doesn't need an introduction. You could give this game to your 6-year-old cousin and by the end of the playthrough, they'd be talking about the Hellwalker. This shotgun, manufactured by Jacobs, is locked to the fire element and has absurdly high base damage, fairly quick reload speed, and a very low magazine size. This weapon often gets referred to as the absolute best shotgun in the game. In reality though, it does have some pretty major flaws. Firstly, it's locked to fire, so if you're not fighting a flesh target, you're losing damage. Secondly, it's a one-shot reload weapon, and while its reload is pretty quick, it still needs to reload after every shot. Still though, the Hellwalker has insanely high base damage and earns itself an S tier spot, even if it's not the best. The Mind Killer is another Malawan shotgun, however, unlike most other Malawan shotguns, the Mind Killer will never have an element. This shotgun has low damage and pretty low fire rate, though on the bright side, it's one of the few Malawan weapons that doesn't require a charge up time before firing. However, the Mind Killer is just super unremarkable in every way. Shooting bullets that look like a sound wave is really the only thing this shotgun has going for it, though that won't help it rank any higher. It's going in the D tier. The TKs Wave is a Jacobs shotgun that is available in non-elemental, fire, or shock. The TKs Wave has been in both Borderlands 1 and 2, though my experience with them in those games are pretty limited. This weapon was pretty subpar for quite a while until May of 2021, where it got a massive weapon damage buff as well as a buff to its projectile speed. The biggest thing holding this weapon back is its wonky projectile pattern. The TKs Wave shoots 6 or 12 pellets horizontally that move a little vertically like a wave. However, these projectiles are spread pretty far apart, so actually hitting all 6 or 12 on a regular sized enemy is a bit rough, unless you're at point blank range. Still though, this weapon has a higher single shot damage than the Hellwalker and is amazing up close and against larger enemies. It's going in the A tier. The Tidal Wave is essentially just the TKs Wave, but with a few minor differences. The biggest of which being the fact that the Tidal Wave has about half the damage per shot as the TKs Wave. This weapon also cannot come in any elements unlike the TKs Wave, and shoots just over twice as many pellets as its counterpart. And while normally for shotguns you want a lot of pellets, the Tidal Wave shoots in the same pattern as the TKs Wave does, except with 2 rows of pellets instead of 1. So these pellets are equally as hard to land on enemies with the TKs Wave. Just like its counterpart, the Tidal Wave is pretty much worthless unless you're super close to the enemy or fighting a larger target. Even if the TKs Wave beats it in almost every single way, it's going in the C tier. The Nimble Jack is a super fun weapon to play around with and can be lots of fun, but is pretty subpar in terms of damage. This Jacob's shotgun locked to non-elemental has a magazine size of 1, which means you need to reload after every shot in most cases, and shoots 7, 9, or 12 projectiles depending on your parts. What makes this particular shotgun special is that its accuracy is substantially increased when the player is airborne. This weapon works surprisingly well for Zane thanks to his insane weapon damage buffs. It's going in the C tier. The Garcia is a pretty standard Jacobs shotgun that is locked to non-elemental. This shotgun shoots either 12 or 16 pellets in a standard pattern. There really isn't that much that makes this shotgun unique over a regular blue or purple Jacobs shotgun aside from the increased damage number. The Garcia is a very basic, but very strong shotgun. It's going in the A tier. The Recursion at one point was one of, if not the most overpowered weapon for Amara mains everywhere, thanks to a glitch at the time that spawned way more projectiles than intended. Nowadays, the Recursion is still actually pretty strong, for mobbing anyway. This Malawan shotgun is available in all elements, and shoots discs that upon hitting an enemy will ricochet to another nearby enemy, and will continue to ricochet to nearby enemies until they all die or up to 7 times. These discs also deal splash damage on every single hit, which makes this shotgun all the better. The Recursion is very strong, but only really for mobbing, and once you're down to your last mob, you're better off switching to almost anything else. It's going in the B tier. Anybody who has ever tried making a melee build knows the Face Puncher. This shotgun, manufactured by Hyperion, is locked to non-elemental and shoots melee damage. In addition to shooting melee damage, each and every pellet of the 7 or 14 pellet shotgun triggers abilities that trigger through melee damage. This shotgun is one of the best options for a melee build, and despite my personal feelings for non-melee attacks dealing melee damage, it belongs in the A tier. The Flacker is a shotgun manufactured by Torg that is available in non-elemental, fire, and radiation. This shotgun shoots 3 pellets that explode multiple times after a set distance. Basically, the Flacker creates a wall of mini explosions that deal splash damage at a certain distance. This weapon is incredibly powerful against larger, stationary targets as well as big waves of mobs. The only place the Flacker actually suffers in this game is against smaller, faster, and unpredictabler enemies. This weapon does require a pretty big learning curve though, as it takes some time to learn the distance of the explosions, but once you've done that, the Flacker more than earns itself an A tier spot. The Nothingness, upon first glance, seems like just a clone of the Flacker with a few slight differences. However, it's not quite the same. The Nothingness is a Malawan shotgun that is available in all elements. This weapon fires 1 or 2 beams that explode multiple times along this path. So rather than the Flacker, which creates a wall of mini explosions, the Nothingness creates more of a line of explosions. This makes the Nothingness just worse overall, as the explosions stop when they hit a target. And while the Nothingness does spawn a couple of projectiles around the point of impact as well, it spawns way less than the Flacker would. Despite having more theoretical damage than the Flacker, and being easier to learn, the Nothingness is almost always a worse choice. It's going in the B tier. The Butcher is a shotgun manufactured by Hyperion that has a quite weird history. Back at the launch of the game, this shotgun was one of the preferred choices until it got nerfed about a month in. Then, 2 years later, it got another buff that brought it back into a very good spot. This shotgun has a very small pellet count and relatively low base damage, but with a very high fire rate, and upon firing has a chance to add a random amount of ammo to your magazine. This chance is very common after its buff and is not rare at all to be able to fire this weapon non-stop for a solid minute or 2. The Butcher is very strong and is available in all elements, so it's going in the S tier. The Trevonator is manufactured by Malawan and as such comes in all elements. This gun shoots a 3-round burst of 3 or 6 projectiles, dealing splash damage. The backstory of the Trevonator is a very sad and wholesome one that I don't have time for here, but I really recommend you look into it. Regardless, the Trevonator is strong, especially after its buff in November of 2022, and it is a great choice for a splash damage build. Its damage does leave a little bit to be desired though, but it more than earns itself a B tier ranking. The Conference Call is manufactured by Hyperion and comes in all elements. This weapon shoots 5 pellets in a straight line that upon impact or at intervals of 0.15, 0.3, and 0.5 seconds, each generate an additional 2 pellets that shoot off at a 90-degree angles from the initial pellet and ricochet off of surfaces once. The problem with this weapon is that just simply its damage is really low, and while the ricocheted projectiles can bounce back and hit the target, that is pretty unlikely to happen in most cases. The Conference Call can be good in close spaces and for mobbing, as the extra pellets can actually hit something, but against smaller waves of mobs, bosses, and especially in open areas, it struggles a lot. It's going in the C tier. The Robin's Call is manufactured by Jacobs and is pretty underwhelming as far as legendary shotguns go. The Robin's Call shoots 9, 12, or 16 pellets, and each pellet that hits a critical hit will ricochet to nearby enemies and restore 1 ammo to your magazine, just like the rest of the Call weapons. However, the damage on the Rowan's Call is just really low, and it is essentially just the Garcia, but with the potential for infinite ammo and a much lower damage output. It's going in the C tier. The Guardian Angel is certainly a weird case as far as putting it in a tier list goes. This shotgun, manufactured by Hyperion, is awful. As a shotgun, its damage sucks, its bullets are crazy slow, and it's locked to the shock element. Where it really shines though is in its special effect. The Guardian Angel increases damage based on how far away from the target you are, up to 500% at 25 meters. But this damage increase doesn't just apply to your weapon, it applies to pretty much all damage, be it damage over time, skill damage, weapon damage, or grenade damage. The Guardian Angel is a major part of a lot of builds simply because of its insane special effect. It's going in the S tier. The Red Line is manufactured by Torg and available in all elements. This weapon requires a charge up time of around 1 second before firing continuously until running out of ammo in the magazine. The Red Line has a very low pellet count though, with only 3 or 4, and its damage per shot is pretty low. But it can still be made very powerful with the right setup, and especially on Mo's considering it deals splash damage. It might not be the most amazing shotgun, but it'll get the job done with the right splash build. The Red Line is going in the A tier. The Lob is another shotgun with a very weird history. The Lob shoots a slow-moving orb that travels through enemies and deals damage as it passes through them. Upon impacting a surface, the orb will explode and deal splash damage. This shotgun is manufactured by Torg and is available in all elements. Originally, the Lob wasn't ever used until it got a huge buff in February of 2020, at which point it became one of the most meta weapons ever, just to be nerfed again in April of that same year. However, the Lob is still pretty strong to this day, and its orb deals around 160% of the weapon's card damage per tick. It's not the most powerful option out there, but it's strong with the right build, and especially against larger enemies who will keep the orb in their hitbox longer. It's going in the A tier. The Creeping Death is a TDR shotgun that is locked to corrosive, and it's quite possibly one of the only shotguns that I would never recommend using. The Creeping Death shoots corrosive balls that bounce off of enemies without dealing any damage, and stick to surfaces. You heard that right. And what's even better is after sticking to a surface, the corrosive ball explodes, 10 whole seconds later, dealing corrosive splash damage. Which basically means that you need to either predict where your target will be in 10 seconds, or hope that they don't move in that time. The only real way to do damage with this thing is by throwing your shotgun, at which point all of the balls will fly over to where you threw the Creeping Death, but even then, there's shotguns on this list that do more damage per shot than this thing will chucking it with a full magazine. It's going in the F tier. Sledges shotgun is manufactured by Jacobs. This gun has been in both Borderlands 1 and 2 as well as this game, and the effect has been the same every time. A 2-round burst fire with varying degrees of chances to knock back damaged enemies. This shotgun is non-elemental and is pretty powerful at close range. Its damage is around the 200,000 damage mark providing all the pellets land, which is pretty difficult to do considering the 9% accuracy stat unless you're inside of your enemies. And it also has a pretty large magazine size. This gun can roll as the Sledges super shotgun, in which case it shoots a 3-round burst, but either way, it's pretty strong. I also don't personally like weapons knocking back my enemies, but that's neither here nor there. It's going in the B tier. The Spade is a shotgun manufactured by Torg that is available in all elements as well as non-elemental. This gun isn't really bad per se, it's just rather unexceptional. This shotgun shoots sticky rounds that will penetrate enemies, leaving a sticky gyrojet on each enemy hit. But this special effect is very difficult to take advantage of in actual gameplay, so it pretty much just serves as a legendary sticky machine, outclassed by the right purple shotgun. Like I said before, it's not bad, it's just not very strong or unique. It's going in the C tier. The Polybius is another TDR shotgun that isn't bad per se, it's just kind of meh. This weapon comes in all elements and shoots 4 pellets that draw a 4x4 grid as you shoot. It used to be completely useless, but thanks to a buff back in 2020, it's just fine. This gun has fairly low damage, only dealing around 13,000 damage per bullet, but it shoots fairly fast, which makes up for it quite a bit. The Polybius is capable of dealing damage, however other weapons beat it in pretty much every category, and it's not great for chucking either. All around, the Polybius is just fine, and that leaves me no choice but to put it in the C tier. The Horizon is a pretty basic TDR shotgun that is available in all elements. If you never engaged in the TDR reload mechanic and just threw your reloads off to the side like I usually do, you'd never actually know what is unique about this weapon. The Horizon, when reloaded, can be shot mid-air to both explode, dealing extra damage, and create a singularity. Now, singularities in Borderlands 3 are nowhere near as useful as they were in Borderlands 2, so unfortunately I can't give it points for that, but it's still a fairly decent shotgun with pretty good damage, so I'm putting it in the B tier. The Tigs Boom is a really hard weapon for me to place as it comes in all elements, has fairly high damage, and deals splash damage, even without its special effect of sometimes spawning meteors when damaging an enemy. But it also doesn't actually have a weapon type in the game's code. What I mean by that is that any weapon type bonuses don't actually affect this weapon at all. Regular gun damage does, but shotgun damage, for example, won't do anything for it. Putting that aside though, it does deal a great amount of damage, even without any weapon type buffs. And it does get the extra modifier from being a splash weapon, so it's going in the A tier. The Flamadiddle is another one of those weapons that gets memed to death for being trash, similar to the Malix Bane. And just like the Malix Bane, upon testing it, it's not really that bad. The Flamadiddle shoots 9 darts in a bullseye pattern that deal fire splash damage. The outer darts will move further and closer into the center dart as they travel, but the most curious thing about the Flamadiddle is despite the fact that it only has 9 darts ever, increasing the projectile count past 9 is possible and will even increase its damage. Even though the Flamadiddle isn't completely worthless, it's not good either. And it would pretty much only be a decent choice for Moe's thanks to Fire in the Skag Den. It's going in the D tier. The Chandelier is a Malawan shotgun that comes in all elements. This shotgun shoots either 4 or 8 discs that will explode upon impacting an enemy or will bounce off of a surface once before exploding on the next impact. This thing just kinda sucks, consuming either 4 or 5 ammo per shot and dealing next to no damage. Not only does this thing barely deal any damage, but it also requires a 1-second charge up time before every shot. The Chandelier does at the very least deal splash damage, but even with that, it's absolutely miserable for damage. It's going in the F tier. The Shocker is a Torgue shotgun that, as the name suggests, is locked to the shock damage element. This weapon shoots 1 shock orb that, after a certain distance, will split into 3 orbs that explode upon impact and will deal shock splash damage. The Shocker is very situational. Using it for larger targets can be successful, but only if they don't move too much. The orbs do move pretty slowly, so in most situations actually hitting your target is a massive pain. Still though, it deals splash damage, and using a Bore Explosion Zane build can make this thing completely broken if used right. It's going in the C tier. Unless you're playing Zane, then it's in the S tier. The Heartbreaker is a shotgun that I really never see anyone talking about, but it's surprisingly good. This shotgun, manufactured by Hyperion, is available in all elements aside from radiation. It has a fairly high pellet count, high damage, and a decently fast fire rate, as well as 20% lifesteal on account of being a Moxie weapon. The Heartbreaker is an incredibly powerful shotgun in anybody's hands, and would do especially well on Flak and Moe's just to keep the ammo up, since this weapon does eat through a lot of ammo. Definitely an A tier item. I've always slept on the Insider as it functions a little weirdly, but it's surprisingly good with the right build. This shotgun is manufactured by Malawan and is available in all elements. The Insider shoots 5, 6, 10, or 12 pellets that pierce through enemies without dealing damage and will explode upon impacting a surface, dealing splash damage. Now, obviously being unable to hit critical hits with this weapon hurts pretty significantly. However, it's still pretty strong for splash damage builds, and does especially well on Moes thanks to fire in the Skag Den. It's not going to work in every situation, but the Insider is amazing on the proper splash damage build. It's going in the B tier. The Slow Hand is yet another Hyperion shotgun from the Handsome Jackpot DLC that is available in all elements. But if you were hoping this would go the same way as the last Hyperion shotgun from this DLC, you're gonna be disappointed. The Slow Hand fires 1 or 2 slow moving orbs that deal splash damage and heal for 50% of damage dealt. The Slow Hand has the stats of a really good shotgun, high damage, decent fire rate, high mag size compared to other Hyperion shotguns, but the major problem with this weapon is its slow moving projectiles combined with its massive splash radius. The orbs of the Slow Hand have a huge radius, which means that you've got to stand pretty far back when shooting it, or else you'll blow yourself up. If you move back to avoid self-damage though, the projectile takes so long to reach the target that it becomes overly difficult to actually aim the shotgun. This shotgun is still pretty strong though, but the self-damage combined with the slow projectiles leaves it in the C tier. The Kill-O-The-Wisp is a shotgun manufactured by Malawan and that is locked to shock. This weapon shoots slow-moving shock orbs that deal shock damage to nearby enemies. This orb will explode after a set distance, dealing shock splash damage, but this shotgun is just absolutely horrible. The shock damage that the orbs do to nearby enemies is so small it might as well not even do anything, and the explosion, while it does do damage, is too difficult to aim due to how slow these orbs move. The Kill-O-The-Wisp is never worth using. If you want the shock effect, use the Storm. If you want explosive shock balls, use the Shocker. It's going in the F tier. The Vosk's Death Grip is a very cool concept for a weapon, but it is another weapon that is just too difficult to use effectively. This shotgun is manufactured by Malawan and is available in all elements. The Death Grip comes with 2 firing modes, the primary mode being the weapon element, where it fires 12 pellets that stop after a short distance and connect together with lasers, dealing damage to any enemies trapped within the lasers. The secondary firing mode is called Vosk's Grasp, which is essentially just a singularity grenade in a gun. I really like the Vosk's Death Grip, as it's a super fun gun to use, but it's just not very strong at all. Due to the way the primary fire works, the enemy needs to be perfectly still to take any significant amount of damage, and while this could be achieved through freezing them, even still, the laser grid is rather unpredictable, and even if the enemy does get caught in it, it's not very strong unless you get all of the lasers on them. As much as I like the Death Grip conceptually, I have no choice but to put this weapon in the C tier. The Fearmonger is a Hyperion shotgun first added with the Bloody Harvest event. This shotgun is available in all elements and has pretty high damage, theoretically anyway. This weapon shoots 4 bullets in a square shape that move toward and away from their center as they travel. These pellets don't get close enough together at any point to land all 4 on a single humanoid's head, so it's not a great choice for mobbing in most areas. But it's still got pretty good damage regardless, and could be made even stronger with a proper terror build, as each stack of terror will give it an additional projectile up to a maximum of 3. Now, I still don't have a proper terror setup yet, but regardless, it's a decently strong shotgun that can be made even stronger with the right build. It's going in the B tier. And finally, we have the Iceberger. This shotgun is just kind of weird. It shoots a very accurate laser, and after the first ammo consumed, will fire a hamburger for every ammo consumed. Upon hitting an enemy, the burgers will split into 2, flying off to the left and right of the parent burger. This gun is pretty much just intended to be a joke gun, and sucks on pretty much everybody except Moes, as the burgers deal splash damage, so fire in the Skag Den can make pretty good damage with them. It's going in the C tier. Anyway, that's gonna wrap up this video. Thank you all so much for watching, have a fantastic day.